So here we are, week 4 out of 23 for my sub 9 hour 30 Ironman project, which means we're now less than 20 weeks away, which is kind of scary. We've got a super exciting episode. It's going to be completely different from all the other weeks. I wanted to go through the data that I have from my bike lactate test, my running lactate, and also my VO2 max, which I'm going to be sharing at the end. But yeah, drop in the comments below what you think my VO2 score is. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be sharing it. But yeah, training's been not tough. I'm just struggling to really find time at the moment. I feel like I've really got a lot going on, and it worries me that I'm not putting 100% into training because I'm setting this goal for myself. I'm committing to this challenge, but I'm skipping sessions I was meant to run today. I'm filming this on a Saturday because I just don't have time on the weekends with the renovations, with training, also through the week with work, to be able to fit it all in really. And I want to make this content actually useful and educational, so I don't want to be rushing it on a Sunday after I get home from the house at around 4 p.m. But yeah, this week was really good. I actually did my longest swim since June and I had absolutely no fade. We obviously did the VO2 test, which was fun. It was difficult. And then we got the bike lactate threshold data back, which we're going to be diving into very shortly. I guess this is what it really is like when you're training for these tough, long distance triathlons while trying to manage your life. So not all of us have the freedom to be able to just train all the time. I know we definitely all would. But yeah, this is what it's really like. We're tired all the time. There's lots going on. I definitely know that I'm taking on a lot more stuff than I need to. I'm sort of neglecting a lot of my friendships at the moment, but I'm trying my best to stay in touch. I don't think I've had a weekend in about 4 months. And just to throw into the mix as well, I've just got to go through all the visa process where I'm moving to in the next couple of months. But we've still got our Spain training camp, which is from March onwards, which is super exciting. I've got a snowboard trip with my dad, so it's going to be a different video there as well. But yeah, lots to come. Want to change it up really, just share some thoughts about how the training's going. I'm seeing massive improvement. So yeah, we're going to dive into the data. We're going to run through some of the numbers. Okay, so what actually is lactate and what does it mean? I'm gonna have to put it on screen and read it because I wasn't really too sure myself. I do understand it and I understand what it does, but the description I do not know. So here we are. Lactate is a valuable fuel source produced by muscles during exercise. Not just a waste product in training, it acts as a marker of intensity. So basically, as your efforts increase, lactate builds up faster than it can be cleared, hitting that threshold zone where fatigue can really set in quickly. Monitoring these thresholds helps determine training zones for endurance. So basically, the lactate threshold test is to be able to discover where your LT1 and your LT2 is. Basically, the actual lactate in your body isn't bad. It's about how fast your body can clear it. And when it passes a point, that's when your muscles become really tired and you feel that emptiness in your muscles. And what a lactate threshold test is doing, it's testing to see how much lactate is in your body at different speeds, which you can then convert into pace zones, which you can then plan your training around. So what this means is you don't want to be training above your lactate threshold too much for long distance because your body can't sustain it there. It cannot clear off the lactate fast enough. Then you'll find this emptiness really fast. So what does LT1 and LT2 actually mean? And that's your two main lactate threshold zones. LT1 is basically when your lactate's rising, and this typically is a pace that you can sustain for quite a long period. Your body's clearing it off fast, and you shouldn't feel really any burnout. So the goal is for your training with your coach is to make this LT1 so big to the point where it's basically like your LT2 or above. That's the goal of the training, because if you can sit in an LT1 zone for a full distance Ironman, and your body's going to be clearing the lactate, you're just going to be performing better. There's no need for you to be doing all the time high threshold sessions, because it just doesn't translate to Ironman or long distance training. And if you've ever sprinted on a bike and tried holding out your max power for 5 or 10 seconds, that's what you feel like. So going into my running lactate threshold test, I was actually a little bit poorly before. I didn't really feel that ill, but my HRV was extremely low. My resting heart rate was quite high. So this data isn't 100% true. I feel like it's a bit frustrating that I did this test. So my resting lactate level was actually nearly triple what it was when I did the bike lactate threshold test 3 weeks later. So that really does show that there was some sort of illness. So my LT1 was here, which was a 454 per kilometer. Again, I actually think it probably would be lower than this. I can sustain that way lower pace for longer periods. But anyways, this is a starting point, so I don't need to be too worked up on the numbers. But that's my LT1. So LT2 is 4 minutes and 8 seconds per kilometer. This is my LT2. Basically, this is where the lactate spikes, and I can sustain this for short efforts. Now I can tell you now this would be a short effort pace for me. Yeah, this LT2 is definitely pretty accurate. I do know I probably couldn't sit there at 4 minutes per kilometer for very long, especially throughout a whole marathon. Anyways, Ironman training isn't about being above your LT1. It's about sustaining and pacing yourself for that whole race. But that data doesn't translate into what I'm trying to do. And my coach actually said to me, he said, what is your goal? Is it to get your 20-minute power up or your 10-second power? Or is it to, I guess, without saying it, finish this goal I've set myself for a sub 9 hour 30 Ironman? I'm glad he said that, because that did reinforce why I'm training like the way I am, and I don't need to get worked up on my 20-minute power or my 10-second or 5-second power output on the bike. But people's always asking, do I need to be doing these tests? A lot of my friends replied to my story. They're very early on in their triathlon stage, even including myself, really. The answer is no, I don't think you need to. I think it's a good baseline, but this stuff always changes. So unless you're doing these tests consistently, I feel like it is a little bit of a waste of money. But for someone who's trying to make not marginal gains, but make gains in the sense of speed, and I'm not just out there to finish the race or just be a number, this data helps. It helps your coach, it helps plan sessions. And then also, if you do this test in the future, you can see that progression as well. Okay, so moving on to the bike lactate threshold data. This is actually where the race is won, really. I would definitely say so. This is where you can get those massive gains. This is where you can really perform well in the race. We start at 150 watts and we increase by 25 watts every 3 minutes in increments, and we was taking lactate readings every 3 minutes. Now, this was where I was a little bit upset, really, for my max aerobic power, which I'll say later on. But basically, my LT1 was 200 watts. And then my LT2 was 260 watts. Now, I was actually a little bit disappointed with the LT1, because in my previous Ironman races, I've been sat at around 230, 235, sometimes 220. But this is on a road bike, on road conditions. You're in a lab, you've got a mask on, so I shouldn't be disheartened. But yeah, this is where I'm at the moment. So I'll be really excited to put a bit more work into my bike. Definitely do some more threshold stuff. But basically what we got here is we got all the zones, the power zone data, which is good. And you can give a rough estimate of really what your bike time would be. I definitely know that the LT2 at 260 watts, I think I could sit at this longer than like 30 minutes. But I think anything over that would probably be getting to a struggle. I've never really sat at that for much longer. It's more been just bursts of power. And then where I threw in the towel was at 325 watts, which felt way harder. I actually felt like I was going to be able to get to 400 on this test, but my legs completely blew up. And on the final lactate reading, it was actually around, I think it was 13.5 nanomoles, which is really, really high. So you can clearly see that my legs were getting emptied. Yeah, at 325 watts. I think I was really struggling to breathe in that mask. It felt like I was actually suffocating. And the second the test finished, I actually ripped the mask straight off. And I was actually really gasping for air. So I think I was at my upper limit. And I didn't really finish that final rep. I was around 6 watts off average, and I was really, really struggling there. But yeah, it's not real conditions. You're in a lab. It was so hot. There was no fan. You're not on your bike. The bike's obviously not really set up to you. There's loads of stuff there really that will affect these results. But yeah, again, this is not exact. It's just good data to have. And I must say, it's been really nice not having to edit a 4-hour long video, and I can actually sit and speak at the camera. Okay, so the number that everyone wants to know, what is my VO2 number? And after this explanation, I'm going to be sharing it. Basically, the VO2 test is the maximum amount of oxygen that your body can produce per minute. Basically, how big is your aerobic engine? Now, this doesn't directly translate to Ironman training or long distance triathlon training. The number's good to have, but on race day, you'll never be close to this. And if you are, I do worry for what's going to come. And my training isn't focused around having a high VO2. It does go hand in hand. The highest VO2 ever recorded was a guy called Christian Blumenfeld. He's a guy that I watch all the time, I follow, and he is a world champion triathlete. He won the Ironman series last year. So yes, it does translate to your VO2 data, but he's probably not training to improve his VO2. It just goes hand in hand with all the training he's doing. So my VO2 score was 62. I actually did think I was going to be around 63 or 65. So pretty happy with that. My Garmin floats around 60 to 62. Let me know if you've done a VO2 test and what your number is down in the comments. But this is a great time to drop me a follow on my Instagram. Also subscribe here on YouTube. It really helps out. I really want to keep pushing this long form content, more educational style. And my peak VO2 was 4.68 litres per minute. And we do know this is a max reading because RER was 1.16. And basically what that reading means is how much oxygen you're breathing in compared to carbon dioxide that you're breathing out, which means you really are at your upper limit. So that's great. I know I push myself. The types of tests with this, you can either do it where they increase the speed, which is actually quite unsafe unless you've got a harness on, or you can keep increasing the gradient. But it did feel like I was running up Mount Everest. My calves were on fire. But there's 2 types of tests really that you can do for this, and I think they both do generate the same results. It's just more of a safety thing. And going back to the pre-lactate, I was at around 0.92, and going back to the lactate threshold running test, I was around 2.3, I think. So that really does show there was an illness there. And then my post-running lactate was around 10.6. My max heart rate was at 191. I think I've seen it a bit higher, but again, that's just on certain days and how hard you're pushing. So I wanted to put some numbers up here really about what that VO2 translates. General population 35 to 45, trained endurance athletes, so I'm at the upper level there. And then you've got elite, which is 70 plus, which one day maybe will happen. VO2 max does not win the Ironman race, so I'm not bothered about that number. It was purely just for a bit of fun. I'll be really excited to test it in the future just to see where I'm at. So yeah, why do athletes care so much about LT1? And that's because that's really where you can sustain these races at. I don't think many of the athletes in Ironman training or long distance triathlon are really cared about their VO2. They probably care more about how big their LT1 is. How often should you retest? I think I'm going to do this once a year, depending on how things go. Maybe we'll up it to 2. But I think once a year is more than enough if you're continuing to train consistently. And I really hope some of you learn from this video today or any of my future videos. And yeah, what's going on in the future? So we've actually got to go and sort out my visa for the place that I'm moving in 2 weeks. And then we've got a snowboard trip And then we're going to be going to Spain from the start of March to be starting my training camp. But yeah, if any of you are going to be in Calpe from March onwards, please reach out. You've got my Instagram, or drop in the comments below. I'll be up for a ride or for some training. I'm going to be based there for a bit. Yeah, super exciting. I can't wait to take you along with me. So yeah, it's Saturday today. We've got a bike and run tomorrow, a brick session. Then we've got some really big work to do over the house. Probably not even going to document it, so we're going to cycle through to next week. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, go back and watch the previous episode so you can really see about what's going on in my life, why is it so busy, why am I always tired, and you can just really get to know me about how I'm trying to handle all this training while working a 9 to 5, renovating a property, training for an Ironman, and also trying to post content and grow my channel. If you haven't already, drop us a like, drop us a subscribe, and I'll catch you all next week.